All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Honesty, joined again, as always, by my co-host, Kenan Torres. We are coming off of a 45-42 win over the Arkansas Razorbacks, or we represent Texas A&M this way. So Texas A&M is coming off of that win, and it was a crazy game throughout. It was it was a normal Arkansas game, to be honest with you. And I love that after the game, Mike Elko basically said, like, this is what it is. You can kind of tell he was pretty glad to not play them next season, especially if Bobby Petrino ends up getting that head coaching job. It's going to be a mess for every defense that has to face the Razorbacks going forward. So
yeah, definitely a game reminiscent of that Rams-Chiefs game back in 2016, 2017, yes. Where both teams combined for over 1,000+ yards of offense and just kind of kept lighting each other's defenses up. So from an entertainment perspective, very much at the top of the charts. I mean, I think when you watch Bobby Petrino's offense and this offense run by Colin Klein, I think you can kind of see this clash of the Titans where all these offensive yards and playmakers kind of put on display no matter what.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I mean, we're going to get into that in a couple minutes. But first, we have to obviously talk about Mike Elko this week. Two big things happened. I mean, one, it happened today and having to do with the fine for the feigned injury that occurred during the game with cornerback Tyler Chappelle. We'll get into that first. But on Monday, Mike Elko was asked, we talked about it briefly, I believe, on here maybe a couple weeks ago, was asked about the Penn State head coaching rumor, the connection that guys like Bruce Feldman and other national columnists for college football have discussed. Basically, just the only connection they really have is that he's from the East Coast. He's a New Jersey native. He played college football at University of Pennsylvania. No, not Penn State. That's an Ivy League. So, no connection there except for the fact that it's both in Pennsylvania. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with East Coast recruiting, which he had to do during his time at Duke as well. Trying to get that entire landscape in North Carolina, which obviously connects up there. So, he was asked about it by, I believe, like we said pre-show, it was Alex Miller. Yeah, of the Eagle.
I think just a national reporter asked him if he's heard his name brought up in all the coaching carousel rumors that comes up. And if this reporter had not asked, I think a lot of the other media members had that kind of in the back pocket, right? Yeah. It kind of felt that way because at this time of year, the people and the coaches who are getting their names called around or doing well are going to get their names called up for jobs like this.
Yeah.
So I think the exact question was, had he heard his name come up in rumors, and does he ever give that any thought, or does he ever discuss that with his players? And he basically, what he said was, it's laughable to even entertain that, or at least bring it into discussing with his players. That it's a waste of headspace is what he called it. So yeah. A lot of fans are going to say, well, that's not a no. I don't think I've ever seen a head coach straight up say no.
Yeah. Well, there have been, and I think, well, just to cut you off a little bit, there have been situations where, and that's why I think it's kind of deeply inserted in a way of, well, I've heard X, Y, and Z over the past 10 years say, I'm happy here. I love my job. Not saying no directly, but basically, and he was in that same circle during his time at Duke, I think it was a month or two before he took the job at A&M. And we saw a couple of people we highly respect in the national media use that as an example. But I will say that was a way different situation. This was going from Duke to Texas A&M, which he knew that was a dream job of Elko's, serving as the Aggies defensive coordinator for 4 seasons, being the primary recruiter for this program, really building it to where it's become now. And I'm going to be honest, like Manny Diaz, who's the current head coach at Duke, he had his chances at bigger schools. He didn't do as well. He ended up taking the Duke job because, yes, it's a head coaching job in a major Power 4 conference, but at the same time, it's one of those, I would call it stepping stone type of position. But if you can thrive there, that's great, right? And I believe that Elko, if he was not offered the A&M job, would probably still be at Duke or potentially at another school. But so he was right then. Like, he did like living in North Carolina, great for raising his family and all that. But it's a completely different situation when you're going from there to an SEC program, especially one that you have a background with.
Yeah, and especially a program now that when you came in, you knew what the pieces were that you were dealing with and how to get it from point A to point B, which he has growing now and is gradually getting there. Not only is like our fans around the Aggie land kind of taking that into account, but national media as well. They realize now how big of a sleeping giant A&M was. They just needed the right person to man the helm. We see that as Mike Elko now, right?
Yeah.
So now this job, we see it as a better job internally than Penn State as of currently constructed right now, especially with the roster and the momentum that he has. So that's the whole discourse that's going around right now. Obviously, the response that Mike Elko gave, it was really a Mike Elko response, right? He has always talked in this way around he's going to make his mind known, but also in a way that's not too highly disrespectful to people. But he wants to make sure that it's laughable to have to think about this when your team is 7-0 going into Death Valley, like Baton Rouge, a extremely tough place to play. And why would he bring that into his players' headspace that, oh, my name is being talked about right now?
Right. Yeah. And I also know from a recruiting standpoint, I see guys like Brandon Arrington. I see others who are committed to this class who have shut down their recruitment in the 2026 cycle, just so excited about their future playing under Elko. Recruits are smart. They hear everything. If they had an inkling that Mike Elko was thinking of stepping out and going for another job, they might be the first to know. I'm going to be honest. I've seen that in the past. I've seen some of the recruiting observations and responses from, current Auburn recruits watching them lose the other night, Florida State, guys like that. These are smart kids that kind of know the way the wind blows when it comes to the future with certain programs. Obviously Florida, with their new coaching departure. Look, this is why he said it the way he did. And when we discussed this obviously pre-show throughout the week and yesterday, some of the response we saw, like, oh, well, he didn't say no. So, I mean, but it's okay. That was like you said, that was an Elko response. He said he's a little peeved, right? Because he's entrenched in the season. They are completely focused on LSU. They just came off of a dramatic win on the road that really saved their college football playoff season, right? Because if they would have lost that game, which we're going to get to soon, it'd be a murky road ahead, because then we're talking you can't afford any more losses pretty much because of the teams that are ahead. But at the same time, the way they won, the way the team responded, the way Elko coached in that game, that does not seem like a man that has one foot out the door. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's very asinine. And I think that for some of the Aggie fans that maybe have a little touch of BAS or something like that, look, guys, this isn't Jimbo Fisher. This is not the same situation. And if you have heard Elko speak over the past 2 years at the helm, this is his type of response. This is what he's going to give you, basically saying, I don't want to hear about this again. Let's just focus on the season, because, I love that he basically said, and I saw some say, well, nobody wanted you fired. Well, you're not paying attention to social media enough, because there are parts of this fan base that even after the opener and after the defense didn't do very well in the first half against UTSA, and there was some issues against Utah State. There was a small faction, not a large one, but a small one, that said, is Elko really the guy? I mean, this isn't great. Okay, so he knows, he sees everything.
It's just like, come on, guys. I think people need to start putting their brains together a little bit more. I mean, this is just calling out an overarching blanket statement. Just, guys, come on. You are your team. If you cheer for the Aggies, you are 7-0,
4-0 in the SEC.
You have reached, the third overall rank in the AP poll for the first time since the first 5 weeks of 1995. And come on, guys, like, is that not something that you could sit back and appreciate first?
I don't know. I think it's just the college football world we live in. It's just the instant gratification type of deal. They want a definite no. But I'm going to be honest again, Would you be okay with that? Because we've seen the past. Well, he said no, but it was his tone. He said no, but it was the way he said no. That you're never going to get anybody satisfied with an answer. So I think so. But again, waste brain space. That's him saying, stop thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Why? It's year 2, guys. It's year 2. And I will be honest with you. I think it was hilarious that you look at the whole coaching regime, right? Like obviously Curt Cignetti, Indiana signed him to a deal that could come back to bite them.
Stellar job, by the way. I think he deserves it. So
yeah, no, excellent coach. I mean, you see Indiana, the basketball school, number 2 right now in the country, national championship.
Some would say they're a football school, Cameron.
Well, yeah, now they are. But best quarterback, I would say, NFL draft wise, in Fernando Mendoza. He's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah,
and my, what I've heard and what I believe personally is that Penn State offered him that job. They went pretty quickly to sign him, get him done, because he was the rising star in coaching right now, and all these other programs, who's Florida right now, obviously Penn State, look at Indiana and go, well, they're not really a football school, so we can probably take the coach. And so Indiana went, hold on, we're going to lock you down forever, pretty much, because you and I, who both follow recruiting, obviously professionally, Indiana's heating up. They're in with a lot of even A&M recruits right now. So they're one of those schools who's going to be, I think, pretty consistent from now on. But again, it's year 2 for Mike Elko. Okay, he finished 8-5 last season. If he would have finished 10-2 and they went to the playoffs last year, and then they're 7-1, yeah, right.
In year 1, by the way,
in year 1, then I would understand the heat under him. Though, okay, this guy's going to take it. But again, there were people last year in January. Trust me, I do this for a living. I look at I always look at both sides of the fan base, I look at the chat rooms, all the boards, all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of hate towards the direction, not hate towards Mike Elko, but the direction the program is going. But when he started making those changes, the offseason, the transfer portal, guys coming back, and now the 7-0 start. That's where he was going, right? Saying, exactly. You guys want me fired, now you want me hired. It's like there's a lot of truth to that. So, again, I'm not going to be here and go, he's not going anywhere. But come on, guys. Let's just live in reality. Move on. Focus on LSU.
Take a step back. Have some fun.
Yeah. So the last thing we're going to say, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I think we'll both agree on it, is that during the Arkansas win, I think it was 14 minutes into I think it's like the 14-minute mark or a little less than that. In the second half of the game, A&M was leading.
Yes.
Yeah, by I think a touchdown still. I'd have to look. But Tyree Chappelle, the starting nickel, he dropped to the ground after the ball was placed on the ground before the next snap. And with the new SEC rules about feigning injuries, basically meaning like you're faking injuries to stop momentum for another team. It's unfair. It was happening a lot with the Ole Miss coach, Lane Kiffin, who maybe they should fine him a couple $1 million. Not going to happen, though, from last season. But a lot of coaches were doing this in fairness. It was not prohibited. So it was a strategic thing that anybody could do in a game, especially when you're playing a quarterback like Taylon Green, who's shredding you through the air and on the ground. Maybe you just want to stop momentum and get back on defense to recuperate. They said that there was a staff member. We didn't see it. I think even if you're on the sidelines, like I've been before, if you're on, watching for TV, you couldn't see this happen, but they said it was a staff member on A&M that went like this, and then Chappelle dropped to the floor. They have now fined, the SEC has fined because of the national rules executive. I forget the full title. $50,000. Mike Elko released. Yeah. Mike Elko released a statement basically saying, look, we understand these rules. We respect them. We weren't doing it. I mean, of course, he's going to deny it. That's fine. We weren't, blah, 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 blah. This is not who we are. We don't teach our players to do this, which I firmly believe that's true. Yada, yada, yada. Move on. Pay the fine. A&M's got the money. Not a big deal, but a lot of commotion through social media, mainly because of the fact that everybody else was doing this last season. And I saw Stu Mandel, a couple others go, yeah, you're busted, A&M. And then we saw Arkansas. I can't do so laughing. Arkansas fans saying they should forfeit the victory. This is bull. I mean, guys, come on. They got fined $50,000.
I do think some of them were half joking. And
I don't know. I think some of them were really like, give us that win. Like, we would have won if that didn't happen. I'm like, really? Your defense was horrible. I don't think you would have won if that didn't. But hey, be it all, things happen. Maybe, I don't know. But give your opinion on this because I'm done talking about it.
I am like Mike Elko. I understand why the rules are in place now. Whether or not he was told to go down or not, from what it looked like, whatever non-contact injury Tyreek Chappelle had, I don't know. I'm not privy to any information.
We're never going to see it.
We have
they
no
saw
idea.
It.
Yeah. If anything does happen or injuries lurk, who knows?
Yeah.
But
I've seen it before, right? Guys cramp up. There's situations when you're playing football, and especially when you're in certain environments that are, more humid. Obviously, sometimes even when you're playing in the cold and your muscles are twitching. And I mean, I've had muscle cramps, which are horrific. They are super painful, especially when you get in the calf or you get in the bicep. And all you can do really is almost punch that thing out or rub it out or massage it out. And sometimes you'll be standing, you'll be fine, and then you drop to the floor. So, look, the SEC can say what they want. They're going to be the top dog here and make the ruling, and you just have to pay the fine and move on. But if I'm A&M and if I am a player that is seriously injured, this sucks, right? Because now they're just going to fine everybody. And the fact is that, Elko is going to get fined over $100,000 and get suspended, or Texas A&M is going to get fined $100,000, and Mike Elko is going to get suspended for the following game if this happens again. And I'm going to be honest, like,
is it for the second time or the third time that he gets suspended?
I think it's the second time. I'd have to look back. I did the update today, but I believe it's. I mean, I can look, but I believe it's the second time because it's. And because they're sending a message, right? So they're sending a message to the rest of the league because they've seen this happen a lot. And let's see. Further violations will result in a suspension for the next game. So if it does happen a second time. So, and if it happens, if it's egregious, right? If it looks egregious, if it looks just like walk, drop. Now, if it's after the play and you are down and you are in pain, if they take away your timeout and fighting for that, then we have a real problem. Then what are injured guys supposed to do? Writhe in pain and make their way to the sidelines and then jump?
It's just not happening.
It's not. So they have to fix this, and we will see. This is the first time it's really happened this season, I guess, because I haven't seen a lot of it.
I don't think it might happen again, not with A&M, but I think we'll see other things happen. In terms of the scale of this, because they have been trying to implement this rule more and more.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. I think this was also a situation where this was a very high-scoring game. It was back and forth. Arkansas was on the verge of even taking the lead at one point. It was, and it was very tumultuous, and the flags were flying a lot. And we don't even have to get into the Chase Besantis flag, which
egregious.
The dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to be honest. If you are teaching football and you are teaching a kid how not to hold, that's the tape you show. But I think literally, I don't want to be conspiracy theorist, but it's almost like the refs were like, you know what? I still want to see an exciting ending. I'm not going to allow that Marcel Reed run because that ends the game. So sorry, flag holding. Yeah.
Yeah. If people don't know what we're talking about, Marcel Reed had a 57-yard keeper touchdown run that was wiped out by a ghostly penalty, a little bit of a push by Chase Besantis on that run, which would have put A&M up over 50 points, the 50-point mark.
52 to 35 at that point, which game would have completely been over. Either way, we're now going to get into the recap.
Let's get into the recap, man. I mean,
we got to really highlight the good and not really the bad, because Mike Elko didn't put any players on defense as honorary, standouts.
I mean, we got a thriller of an offensive showcase. 45-42 is the final score. A&M pulls out the victory in Fayetteville, and I really thought that. This game, we discussed it last week with Kyle from Hogbeat, that this was a game that Arkansas could definitely keep close if they kind of pull out all the cards. And we saw them show all their cards in this game. We saw really a Talon Green showcase. It's a testament to why all these NFL like draft buzz has had him kind of steady creeping up these draft boards because he is an athlete, man. I swear I'm walking outside during halftime and I have friends texting me saying, hey, this guy looks like a gazelle with a football in his hands, and he's just kind of taking over this game. And for the most part, Marcel Reed also was taking over this game as well. So it was just this back and forth of just offensive firepower. Is one of those shows where you kind of can't take your eyes off of it.
Yeah, it was crazy from start to finish. And A&M did build, obviously, I think it was the A&M defense that we thought we were going to see in this game. We did see spurts of that with obviously the holding the Razorbacks to 3 points in the red zone. Obviously, A&M's prolific third down defense had its moments in that game. A&M built a sizable lead. I believe they were up 21-3, 21-6 at one point before just Taylor Green just took over. And this was after he was injured, came back into the game, led them to a minutes before halftime touchdown. Some of the worst defense we'll see from A&M probably all season, I would think. And it's really hard to talk about the defense right now. And Elko did a good job after the game, basically saying they didn't show up. And they really didn't show up because there were areas where I'm almost screaming both out loud and internally of watching Green just get to the outside, outrun everybody. You really had the contain was horrible. You had defensive linemen running against him, which is a mismatch. You didn't have, really a spy out there most of the game to stop him and really contain him to the outside and make him stay in the pocket, which if he can do both of those things, he's going to just kill you. And he's going to kill your secondary. He's going to put a lot of pressure on them. They have Omega Blake, who's one of the best receivers in the SEC right now. Just a big body, excellent route runner, fast dude, and he made mincemeat out of that secondary. I think he had 118 yards and a score on the game. But focusing on the good stuff, because really the entire defense played bad. It was just bad leverage. It was bad. Cash Patel had, I believe, 8 pressures, so we can say that was fantastic. He was held a lot in that game, so he had a great game. But overall, it was the offense. It was the balance, the play calling, taking chances on fourth down. This is Marcel Reed's best game, in my opinion. It was his most complete outing. This was a game where he was confident, where he made great decisions, opting for the check down pass to get the first down instead of throwing downfield for a 50-50 throw, right? And they converted on all 3 fourth down attempts. And the best one was obviously after the half. I think they were leading 38-35. Crucial moment of the game. E.J. Smith backtracked, got hit, readjusted, and then just burst his way into across the line for the first down. That led to Marcel Reed's best throw, I think, of the season so far. I'm not kidding you. I would say, the Mario Craver touchdown in the first half against Florida was one of his best deep passes. This sideline pass to Ashton Bethel-Roman, who, credit to him, had his best game as an Aggie, just perfectly landed in his hands. He kept his feet inside. He got 1 foot in. Great catch by the sophomore. I mean, if this is the Ashton Bethel-Roman, we're going to get the rest of the season. A&M's passing game might be unstoppable. But just the poise of Reed in these moments, right? That's what I saw the most of. And also the balance without Le'Veon Moss was the first full game without him. Ruben Owens led the day with, I think, 67 yards, had 2 touchdowns. E.J. Smith got robbed of a touchdown because of a holding call. I was actually really still pissed about that because he deserved to get a score. But I think they found the formula without Le'Veon Moss in this game. And I think that even though Casey Concepcion had a 17-yard touchdown, that it was actually the drive. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself so we can actually get to there. This was a 21-20 game with Arkansas had all the momentum going in. And I remember at half, I was actually watching the game with my dad, which I've had the blessing to do this season, which, for you guys who love watching games with your dad or your mom or your parents or your family in general, do it as much as you can, especially if you cover these games live. If you have a chance, do it as much as you can. It's just memories you'll keep forever. But we were discussing, and I said, well, looking back on my kind of Rolodex of games, A&M in the past with Jimbo Fisher did not respond in these, especially on the road. We saw this last year with South Carolina. Obviously, Le'Veon Moss was injured in that game. kind of took away their offensive firepower. But the fact that they went out there, a rowdy crowd, right? They got back into it. People started coming back, flooding back into the stadium. Everything against them, Marcel Reed runs for, I think it was a 45-yard run, just silence that defense, and then a strike to Casey Concepcion in the end zone to take a 28-20 lead. And they led the rest of the game. And I mean, I literally said to myself, they're going to win this game. No matter what happens, they're going to win this game because they know, and Mike Elko knows, defense isn't going to do anything today. We're going to take chances on offense. We're going to trust our signal caller and our talented offense to get the job done. Yeah,
this is a game, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marcel Reed had his best offensive PFF grade ever.
He did.
Since that, I think it's at 82.3,
yes.
Which is exceptional. I think he had a 79.5 passing grade as well and a 71 rushing grade. So I lean heavily on PFF grades when it comes to trying to trust the eye test. And he passed the eye test with flying colors in this game. And the numbers now back it up. So in this game where you just have gut shot after gut shot after gut shot from both sides, it's really who is going to have that final say. And I really do think that 57-yard touchdown run that was called back essentially had that momentum stripped away from Arkansas no matter what. I think at that point, and I think a couple of the players like Ashton Bethel-Roman also were quoted saying that they knew the game was in their hands when EJ Smith made that exceptional fourth down run, like you said, on 4th and 1, up and bounce outside. So in a game like this, where it has always been kind of the story of this game is that both teams are going to play it close, and A&M will usually come out with the win very close, except for one time.
Yeah.
That it's just a matter of just put your head down. You're going to be able to win this game with your game plan and get out of there. I mean, this is a team that we've seen win multiple styles of ways this full season now. You saw them win a shootout in South Bend, Indiana at Notre Dame. You saw them win a brick of a game against Auburn, but you also saw them play a more versatile game against Florida as well. So if you have a team like this A&M team in year 2 under Mike Elko, where you could win in multiple types of ways, I think you have that recipe for success, especially now going into Death Valley in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, and that's a perfect point. It really is that you really have to ignore the score in this game. You have to ignore the defensive performance because I knew coming into this, I think a lot of smart people I trust, including, we should have him on the show, to be honest, John Patterson is one of the best Aggie fans out there, smart football guy. He even said, I mean, I think we all agree with him, this is the hardest matchup this defense has the rest of the season. Maybe Lenore Sellers, but South Carolina, they're not really on par with Arkansas right now in terms of their problems. And it's a way different game in Kyle Field this year, but he will be a threat as well. But mobile quarterbacks with size. I'm going to be honest, I can't wait to watch Arkansas and Taylor Green play Texas and a couple other schools because I think he's going to have a hell of a performance.
Oh, they play ye old Auburn this weekend, my friend.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. And I think that A&M fans who watched that game, watched some of the earlier games in the slate for A&M plays LSU at 6:30, you're going to see this is not just A&M's defense. This is how good this kid is. This is how good Bobby Petrino's play calling is, because I've been watching Petrino's play calling since I was a child, right? I've seen this guy turn these quarterbacks who, above average arms, pretty good, into elite signal callers because it's comfortable, it's multiple. He always gives you great skill players to get the job done. They obviously kill them on the ground as well. Mike Washington, those other guys, and I can't remember the name of their backup running back, but just two bruisers that are very physical. Their O-line held up for the most part. This is a team that probably should have 4 wins, I would say. I mean, they've lost a lot of close games. Obviously, they lost that game on the road to Memphis. I think the really only blowout loss they have is to Notre Dame at home, which was really good. What got Sam Pittman fired. But they're a very weird team. But I'm going to be honest, after watching them almost pull off the upset, they're going to beat some teams ahead of them. They're not going to end the season with 2 wins. So I think A&M and Elko and the entire team is just happy to get the hell out of Fayetteville.
Exactly. You know what? That line that Arkansas has against Auburn at home is, I believe, Auburn -1.
It should be.
I think it's Auburn
should be
-1.
even. I'll be honest with you.
It's mainly just a pick'em game at that point,
Yeah,
right?
it should be.
And speaking of lines, A&M on our good friend Underdog actually is a 3.5-point favorite going into Death Valley this weekend. So for those of you who are not, or for those of you who are new to the show, we are sponsored by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. So if you guys actually just play $5, you actually get $50 instantly. It's like magic right into your account. And if you want to be like me and tail a couple of these picks that we're going to make tonight, predict this LSU Texas A&M game, which is going to be electric, go ahead and use the code VOCFB Aggies on Underdog, and you get $5. Or if you play $5, you get $50 instantly in bonus plays. So that is VOCFB Aggies.
Yep, as usual, participants must be 21 or older. If you have a gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, yeah, and I think we can kind of sum up the game of this was a trap game. They got out of it with a win. I really hated kind of the responses because it kind of makes me sad that some people really aren't kind of on that football level I wish everybody was at, and that's fine. I'm going to be honest. People get very emotional about this game, and that's what makes it beautiful, to be honest with you. But when you win games like this, it further proves that you are a championship level team and that you can win in different ways when you have to, because again, this was the polar opposite game to when they beat Auburn 16-10. That was a game where, yes, they racked up, over 414 yards, I believe, in that game. But at the same time, penalties and just, poor decisions, obviously interception at the end of the game from Marcel Reed. They could have lost that game, right? Well, what did Elko do? He told his defense, "I trust you completely. I'm gonna basically give you the game to finish this thing out." Obviously, Dayon Hayes with that game-sealing sack. It was the same thing on Saturday. It was, you know what? It's 4th down again. We're going for it. I don't care where we're at. We have to get a first down. We have to drive. We have to score again, because we're going to have to score at least 40-plus points to get this thing done. That's what they did. Obviously, we can talk about that Chase Pasantis phantom call, which would have just, made the game even prettier, of like 52 to probably 42 at that point. And it just shows how elite A&M's offense is at this juncture, is that Marcel Reed with his legs, man, when he gets it going, man, I'd love to see more of that. And leading into LSU, this is the game of the weekend, I would say. I mean, there's some good matchups, but where LSU is right now, obviously losing to Vanderbilt 31-24 last Saturday. You and I both watched that game in full. I mean, I'm going to be honest, after when you watched, 2019 LSU, how prolific that offense was, how everything was clicking, how really they had strengths on both sides of the ball. LSU has become a one-dimensional team right now. They are really defense only. They have one of the worst running back performances, even though, rushing attacks.
Rushing attacks, yeah.
I think they're averaging like 108 or 110 yards per carry.
Probably less than that.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Or per game, per carry. Jeez. And two very talented running backs. I mean, but that stems from bad O-line play. Garrett Nussmeier was under attack all game, and this was a Vanderbilt pass rush that's respectable. It's the way Clark Lee's an excellent defensive coach, so the way they attacked him was strategic, and it obviously, got, I think it was over 20 pressures from Pro Football Focus in that game. But again, I'm not impressed with this team right now. I don't think that Brian Kelly thought they'd be at this point going into, week 9. I almost think that maybe one loss. I mean, losing to Ole Miss on the road is understandable. Now, after seeing Georgia beat them 43-35 in a track meet similar to Arkansas A&M, not a good look, because I forget what the score was. I think it was like 24-21 when LSU lost to Ole Miss on the road, but they have had scoring problems all year. I think they're averaging, it's like 24 points a game. Nussmeier just doesn't look the same. But again, he's under pressure a lot. He's still a very good quarterback. We were talking pre-show, several great throws in that game, but it just wasn't enough to get it done. The defense, which, great talent. Obviously, that secondary has looked fantastic for most of the season. There were open holes for Diego Pavia to just run through. I mean, it just looks like a team that's in disarray right now. And the fact that we were just doing the betting odds, LSU is a 2.5-point underdog at home right now, according to most sports books. It's a weird time, man. I mean, this was a game that if this was a couple of years back, LSU would probably be like an 8.5-point favorite, 7.5 at least. And
there's a certain you can't name it. It's a certain je ne sais quoi, where it's just that certain something, whether good or bad, about this LSU team is where they have shown you who they are already, and they've continued along this same path. You said it at the start, they seem to be a one-dimensional team, where it's that their defense is really their statement mark right now. This is complete 180 from where it was 2 years ago, where they were, the best offense in all of college football, but they went 9-3 because their defense couldn't stop anything. Mm-hmm. They brought in Blake Baker from Missouri, and he essentially changed the defense up entirely. I know he's from LSU, but by way of Missouri, but Blake Baker has really turned around this defense, and it definitely has some studs on the defensive side. They brought in AJ Halsey from Houston. They brought in Tamarcus Cooley from, I believe, Virginia Tech. I could be wrong there, but this is a defense that has been revamped and just changed under the mentality that they needed to get better. We thought preseason going into this game that this would be one of, if not the hardest matchup for the Aggies, because it's at Death Valley and it's one of the worst places to have to play if you're an opposing squad. So in this game, can you repeat the blueprint that Vanderbilt gave you, right? I think there were three things that stood out to me about that game this past week when Vandy played them. They dominated time of possession. They didn't rush themselves, right?
Yeah.
And they got all their playmakers involved. I know we say a lot about how Diego Pavia played, but they got a lot of their playmakers involved.
Yeah.
I think if you have all of these three things, that balanced attack, that you can have this same repeat kind of thing that you saw where Vanderbilt just beat them handedly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think you and I are very worried about this game, and that's what's crazy, right? Because we were worried about pretty much every game before this about a potential A&M slip up, especially Arkansas, right? Both you and I think our predictions were pretty on the nose. I think I picked them to win like 35-27. It was all very close. I mean, they ended up winning by 3 points. So those type of games right now in the SEC are what's tripping almost every team up. And you think on the surface, like going to Baton Rouge, it's a night game. It's sold out. It's LSU. You haven't won a game in Death Valley since, again, this guy was born 1994. I was a wee little baby at that time. So, again, and that was, a different LSU program, different A&M program. But at the same time, this is the perfect chance. You are the better team. You are the more balanced team. You have more playmate. That's the crazy thing, right? I shouldn't say that, because this is a team that has Davion Thomas, Barryon Brown, Nick Anderson, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson is back. They have a ton of speed and talent at wide receiver, and this is a 5-2 team, 2-2 in the SEC. It's crazy, and they have problems scoring. Like that's what's just nuts to me. And we were going to have an LSU guest on. Things dropped out at the last minute, but I think they'd be saying the same thing, whoever it was. They are just not even close to living up to the standard of LSU football right now. Because what's hilarious too, I always mention the Dallas Cowboys, which is kind of funny. Different team now, so we'll just talk about, Jerry trades Micah Parsons, wants to stop the run. So they've had moments where the run stopping has been better, but one thing gets better, the other thing gets worse. That type of deal that happens all the time. So LSU secondary was horrid. It was literally a trash can type of performance every week. And now it's one of the better units in the country. But again, that's not going to win you games all the time because A&M has been in their shoes. They've had really good defenses, very subpar to average offense. And that's not going to win you games consistently. Now, A&M has the better offense. They have the more confident offense. They have 2 wide receivers, maybe 3 wide receivers if we're throwing an Ashton Bethel-Roman if he's really gaining steam right now that can kill you in a variety of ways. And we saw, that's really what opened up Ashton Bethel-Roman in that game. Like he had one-on-one coverage pretty much the entire game because they were bracketing Casey Concepcion at some points. They were really focusing on Mario Craver because Craver, to be honest, is considered the top wide receiver in the country right now by a lot of metrics. And we can actually talk about at the end of the game where he's at statistically. But Marshall Reed is playing at such a high level right now because, I don't want anybody saying that Arkansas, well, it's Arkansas's defense. That's why he played well. No. Okay, because he has come to the point of I have this perfect symbiotic relationship with both Mike Elko and Colin Klein to the point of Colin Klein knows my strengths, he knows my weaknesses. I don't think there's a lot of weaknesses right now, but all the tendencies, everything that he tends to do a little too much of is the same thing we talked about against. I think it was against Florida where he was double clutching a little too much. We didn't see any double clutching against Arkansas. All those issues he had, he's fixing them game by game, which produced 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing score. So I really don't think that even though he's playing against a good defense, he's going to be phased one bit. And by the way, this is a young man who's already won in the swamp. He's now won against a Arkansas team that we just talked about for the last 20 minutes, has one of the most dangerous offenses in the country. He's seen it all. I get he hasn't played at LSU yet because he's only been the starter. This is the first full season. It's just another challenge. It's just another box to check for this program. And I get, it's daunting. And, it's a game on ABC. It's a primetime game because of, the stakes for LSU right now. Really, Brian Kelly in general of his future. Because we do know that if this was any other program, 5-2 is not going to get you fired, right? It's not. We're not really going to even talk about that, right? But at LSU, 5-3,
their level of standard is much higher. They expect to win championships year out.
Exactly. So it's and so when I look at this roster, and I hate even more so during the week. The biggest weakness is O-line. We both knew that losing their bookend starters last year, that was really the main reason why Garrett Nussmeier was able to have such a proficient season from the pocket. You lose those guys to the NFL, you're just throwing in new guys, and we know that tackle play is so important in this league.
It really is.
You look at, we're talking about PFF grades, you look at Trey Zune, one of the highest rated pass protectors in the country right now. Demetrius Crown over the right tackles been excellent. Ruben Fatherly has been one of the top pass protectors. Their interior is doing a great job inside. Again, yes, Marshall Reed being protected is helping him tremendously. He's having a similar season, kind of like to what Nussmeier was doing. You see, any other quarterback in the SEC right now that's getting adequate protection is doing pretty well. And you see, like Auburn Tigers, one of the worst pass protection teams. I think they've allowed like 27 sacks on the year. They can't keep a quarterback, right now, and they're going up and down. Jackson Arnold's still starting there, but the poor kid's getting, hammered every other play. So, it's my last point. I'll let you get in. It's just crazy to me that, I just saw all offseason the high expectations, and LSU's a national championship contender, but nobody really kind of talked about the O-line. They said they kind of we'll figure it out. It's like, okay, well, you haven't figured it out yet, and now you're going to be facing A&M's defensive line, which I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Those guys are hungry because they got embarrassed last week. That is not the standard. Mike Elko said after the game, that is not the standard of Texas A&M. That is not the standard of our defense. He didn't give them 1 ounce of credit, and that's going to fuel those guys, especially Cassius Howe, who is now going to be going after backup left tackle, who's actually naturally a center, DJ Chester. Left tackle Tyree Adams is now out for several games. It could get ugly.
I think it's important to know how big of an injury that is, because Tyree Adams, although not performing at the level that their 2 NFL level tackles were last season, he was he's adequately trying to give Garrett Nussmeier the best chance he can back there. And that's a big blow for their offensive line, because that left side, that's where Cassius Howell is coming off of, right?
Yeah.
So Cassius Howell is going to be going against DJ Chester. There's been some reports saying that Carius Curran, like a true freshman, could be getting some play time over there, because
it's not better.
It's not better.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when DJ Chester was replacing Tyree Adams in this game, he had one of the worst PFF graded by pass or rush protection in the country this past week against Vanderbilt.
Yes, I believe I saw a Vanderbilt defensive end, maybe a defensive tackle, basically push him just back.
It was a linebacker.
Okay, that's even worse. So that's, yeah, we're going to see a lot of simulated blitzes. We're going to see a lot of angles. I think Mike Elko might have a field day with the way he can move these guys around, because what we do know about A&M's defensive line, linebacker rotation, and secondary, especially their two safeties, speed is everything. And when you can blitz in a variety of ways and just send pressure against this young and semi-experienced O-line, but they've had a lot of issues all season. This is the reason why I've seen all week that LSU fans are very worried about Garrett Nussmeier, because this could become a sloppy game. And I'm not saying, see, that's the thing. I expect A&M's offense to do well. I really do, because I see the numbers. I get it. They're one of the better overall defenses. They do well in the secondary. They obviously stop the run at an adequate pace. But A&M really hasn't been phased yet by one of those top defenses. We saw against Auburn the entire week. We're going to stop the run. You're not running on us. I think they had, 200 yards plus running? Yeah. So the scheme, the blocking up front, the versatility they have in the running back room now, I think that E.J. Smith could end up having a big game in this one. I think his physicality, how he meshes perfectly with what Ruben Owens wants to do. He's more of the speed, agility guy, where E.J. Smith just wants to hammer it in. He looks like one of the more physical backs on this roster right now, which is pretty incredible, because he was more of a versatile running back coming out of the high school ranks. Obviously, his first cut 2 or 3 seasons at Stanford. So they've really found something with that group. And like I said, yeah, you can get Delane to cover Casey Concepcion or Mario Craver all night and shut them down, but they're just going to get Terry Bussey open. That's going to get Ashton Bethel Roman open. That's going to get either Concepcion or Craver open on those middle mesh routes. You can tell I'm tired here. And a lot of the same game plan they had, I believe, is what you're going to see against this defense, is that get them off kilter. Yeah, you're going to take some deep shots when there's one-on-one coverage, but they just can't keep it low scoring all night. And LSU is going to have to respond. And I'm going to be honest, unless he just hits perfectly on a couple deep shots, or, they get something going in the middle of the field, Nussmeier is going to have a really hard time getting the ball away. And now I will say, A&M's defense could struggle then. We don't know that. It's a week-by-week league. We don't think that, even though I think that they're going to improve because they were embarrassed, this could easily be a higher scoring game. I just think that when you're coming off a game like that, where you allow over 500 yards and it's over 260 yards on the ground, you're going to change some things up, because that's not happening again.
Let's be honest. The thing that's not happening is probably letting near 150 yards of rushing to this LSU team. I think that's the thing that even LSU fans are safe to say that their complaints have fallen on deaf ears at this point with their rushing attack. I love Garrett Nussmeier as a quarterback. I think he has those NFL level skills and these plays where you're just like, man, that was an incredible throw. How did he find that receiver there? But there comes a time when you are asking a quarterback to do too much. We saw it last night, where Baker Mayfield was taking out the Lions in a game from behind, where they just had to go down the field 11 pass plays in a row. And as much as I love Baker Mayfield, as much as I know you probably love Baker Mayfield, there comes a time when asking a quarterback to do too much is detrimental to your offense, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's a perfect point. You can tell I'm a little tired today. At LSU, when we said it, we said it at the beginning of the show, they have one of the worst rushing attacks. I think it's dead last in the SEC right now, despite having a talented running back room. So it's you need that give and take. You need that balance to have any sort of I guess well-oiled machine, as you could say. It's just that's why Nussmeier, I'm not saying he regrets coming back this season, but at the same time, it's got to be in the back of his head. Like, I thought I'd get better protection up front, and I thought I'd at least have an average running game to help balance things out, because even though you have all that talent at wide receiver, if you can't run the ball and they're just teeing off on you every single play, I mean, you're really just kind of have to heave it up and hope for the best. Like we saw with Xavier Thomas against Vanderbilt, where that was like a screen that he kind of just threw it away, and Thomas got it.
Let's be honest, Xavier Thomas broke 7 people out of their
team. Credit to him. He's an excellent athlete. He was a cool scorer, but tackling.
In terms of someone who you're going to have to keep an eye on, I think this is a game where Xavier Thomas, if they want a chance to win, Xavier Thomas is going
to have a big game.
Exactly. But this is an LSU team that they have shown people who they are already. It's just a matter of, are they going to be able to change it at home, where they've already shown at home that they're doing the same things that they're doing on the road? No,
I don't believe it. I don't see it. I think it's too far in the seat. And credit to myself, a little pat on my back right here.
We'll tell you.
I did say that A&M would be undefeated going into this game, but I don't see it happening, because they had games that you should blow out certain opponents to start the season. They were struggling early. Yeah, they got away late. And when you're doing that, you know something's wrong. I go back to the A&M season that they lost to Appalachian State, 2022. I think it was after they beat Sam Houston. And this is a game where this is my first season with Aggies Wire covering the Aggies. And it was Jimbo Fisher after the game, just when they were asking him how he thought his offense was playing, and he's just kind of like, yeah, we got a lot to work on, right? They obviously had a lot to work on, because they lost Appalachian State the next week. Right. So it was just one of those seasons where I'm like, I'm not saying this is similar, but when you have so many problems and you don't have a similar trajectory like A&M is having this year, where we've been talking through about the entire show, is that you can win in multiple ways. Like, again, Elko after the game when they won, what was your message? Well, our defense wasn't showing up, so I had to focus on the offense, and that produced you 45 points, and you won by 3 points. And if you didn't have any offense in that game, you would have lost by 2 scores, right? So you can literally focus on both areas when you need to, if one area doesn't show up. And so if you don't have that, if you don't even have anything to rest your laurels on, that you can get through a game with that unit and trust them, it's going to be very, very long. And if they lose to A&M on Saturday night, this ain't going to be the first. This is probably going to be, the third. And you're going to drop another one late. And you might drop another one late because you just don't have anything that is the definite strength that you can go into every game and go, this is what we're going to do. Especially, for example, Wisconsin's a great example. I always go back to. They are a running team. Right now, they are lost. They don't have an identity. Like, the fact is that there hasn't been a coaching change there is actually a little confusing to me. But no matter the coaching regime that's been there, they run the ball effectively. They're going to beat you on the ground. If they lose the game, at least they tried to beat you on the ground, and they won the rushing game, and they kept things balanced enough. LSU just hasn't found that yet. And when you're facing a team as hot as A&M is, and the way they've won the last 2 games just in dominant fashion on both sides of the ball, and I get it was a 3-point win, but they were dominant on offense. I mean, even when Marcel Reed ran for that touchdown, was called back, they were about to win like 52-42. I mean, all they did was score every drive except for 2. That's dominant. The defense gave up the points, but outside of one moment in that game where they were up 38-35, nobody thought A&M was losing that game, because every time they got the ball back, I remember the announcer just like, well, I mean, Arkansas can feel good about this, but, A&M scored on every drive. So, I mean, this is just going to be one of those games. And when you can do that, it's going to take, I'm not going to say a miracle, but it's going to take the best game we've seen from LSU all season to get this done, in my opinion. And it's going to take A&M not showing up to lose this game.
I tend to agree with you. And then we'll wrap the show off with this. If you want to make predictions, I think you and I are ready to make them, because I think from the sound of what we've been talking about tonight, we feel like this game script has been unraveled before because of what we've seen from both teams so far. Is this a game where you can go into an extremely hostile environment in Death Valley and completely have a different game plan or game script? Absolutely. But we've also seen other teams go into Death Valley already and do what they do. But we've also seen LSU at home do the exact same things they've done on the road. This is a team that only scores around 20 points per game, even at home. That's just not going to cut it with a team like A&M, who is averaging around, I believe, in the mid-30s.
36, I think, last time I saw. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to cut it. You?
No. And instead of giving an elongated answer, which I just did, which I hope that all made sense. I really got on some tangents there about what's going on. But no, I completely agree. It's just, and that's really what I'm trying to say, is that if they were better at home, I'd probably be picking LSU. That's really as basic as it is. If they were just a bad road team, which we see with almost every SEC team all season, the fact is that we haven't seen that from A&M yet, because they beat Notre Dame in a track race in week 3 in South Bend. I don't think another team is going to beat Notre Dame in South Bend the rest of the season. So they got that done. And then they beat Arkansas, obviously, last Saturday in a game that was very similar and, equally important in the way of how, if we're going to be a playoff team, these are the type of performances we have to have, because we're going to face probably maybe not quarterbacks like Taylor Green, but you're going to face some quarterbacks that are going to have similar performances, especially if your defense doesn't show up again. So they know how to win in all these environments. And it goes back to last season with Florida on the road. Marcel Reed making his first start, making a couple incredible throws, them controlling the line of scrimmage, running the ball at will against a Florida team that was desperate and that had every Florida fan in the Gainesville area show up, and still A&M dominated that game. So they've shown the ability under Mike Elko to get this done. It's the first time in Baton Rouge for Mike Elko as the head coach. It's the first time for Marcel Reed. It's the first time for a lot of players on this team outside of, a couple returning starters who were here, obviously, during the 2023 season. But again, that game was a meaningless game at the end of the year. It was when A&M and LSU played each other at the end of the season as the primary rivalry before Texas entered the SEC. I think it was like an early afternoon game. It was it was against LSU's horrific offense. Jalen Henderson was the quarterback. I mean, we'd have to go back a while, and that was a lost season. I remember we were already kind of checked out as writers of moving on to basketball at that point. So there's a lot of new here, and there's a lot of boxes to be checked. But I think A&M is just a hotter team. I think they're extremely confident after winning the way they did. And I'm going to be honest, I just don't think they're scared of LSU. I think they faced Garrett Nussmeier and the similar offense that's up a couple of pieces last season in Kyle Field in a game where they had to come back to win at home. So, I mean, they know them. And they know Nussmeier, and they know his tendencies. And they know that this offense isn't even close to what it was last year. It's lost. It's just kind of all over the place. And mainly, if they can't run the ball, game over. I just don't see it unless LSU's defense completely just shuts down A&M, and this is a low-scoring game. I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to take A&M 27-20.
Okay, a little conservative on the offensive side there, I see, because of the
but I think on the road. I mean, it could get in the 30s, but it could also be an ugly game. I don't know. I'm always kind of weird about that. It's the same with Arkansas. I don't think weather's going to be an issue either, but you never know. I didn't know it was going to torrential rainfall before the game.
True. I mean, they definitely could have another one of those games where it's a little bit damp going in.
Yeah. So I was kind of lower side.
Here's how I see this game trip going in my head. I think this is finally the time that we see a Randy Bond game. I think this is one of those games that you are going to see probably around at least 4+ field goal attempts because of how good Blake Baker has this LSU defense playing. Okay. I think this LSU defense is a very, very big definition of bend, not break, but their offense just has not been able to kind of keep up with what their defense is able to help them out with. We've seen this also with, Hugh Freeze's Auburn. as well. We kind of saw that in that game we've already had.
Mm-hmm.
So here's kind of how I think, and maybe you can tell me if I'm a little bit wrong in thinking this. I think this is a game that we see Randy Bond just kind of take over and kind of just help A&M kind of boost their way through this kind of hostile environment. So I have this game 33-24. I think that this is a game where if my game scripts in my head is right, I think Randy Bond walks out of there with like 4+ field goals. I think this is a game where you might struggle to get touchdowns kind of with those explosive plays immediately. But if you do, this game is going to get out of hand. So that's where my prediction now, 33-24, A&M wins going in. I know it really hasn't been done in a very long time. And LSU is also, I believe, 18-1 at home at night in Death Valley. But I think this is
that's crazy.
It's a great set to have, right? Yeah. But this is also an A&M team who is ready to have their own historic moment. I think this is one of those times.
I agree. I mean, and I think it was important because I did have a lot of people say, why isn't he talking about Randy Bond? Like, have they made a kicking change? It was good. He didn't really talk about it during the week, but it was good when the announcers, who obviously have these pregame discussions with the coaching staff and all that they've been pumping him up. They've been basically saying, you're the man. Just get it done. And that's the best thing you do for
continue that. Yeah. I'm here to continue that.
Yeah. I mean, because he's the best option they have, in my opinion. I think Jared Circle has a bigger leg, but I think just Bond's experience, and he's been through it. He's seen it all. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, this could end up being that type of game, mainly because of how desperate LSU is. I do worry about if A&M's defensive line doesn't get home enough, then it could be, a game like you said with Xavier Thomas, Barron Brown, Aaron Anderson, made that big play last year against the Aggie secondary that, they just couldn't tackle him, but he is hard to tackle. There are opportunities for LSU to get explosive plays through the air. And so, A&M just needs to be tight in the secondary. And if they are, I think they can limit those to the point. And if they just score enough, like you said, they probably are going to stop them more often in the red zone because of this defense, especially this cornerback rotation. And that's where Randy Bond is going to be, their most important player. So, yeah, I mean, it is weird that we're both picking A&M to pull off the upset.
It feels a little weird.
It is, because I don't think I'd ever pick A&M to win in LSU as long as I've been covering them. I think they had a chance that game. They had a chance back during, I think it was Fisher's second season. When they were facing Max Johnson.
I think it may have
drive.
Yeah, I think it may have been the 2021 game.
Possibly, yeah. And they had a chance, I think, to finish with 9 wins and just completely drop the hammer. A lot of people go back to Dominique Richardson. He had that turnover out of bounds. It was called that. Yeah. So it's been hellish for A&M in Baton Rouge. They want to exercise some demons. They want to get through this thing because I think we both agree. They are not scared. They don't care. They're like, oh, we haven't won there since. Okay, well, we're going to try to win there. So we're not going to come in there afraid of you, because LSU just hasn't been that team this year. They have not shown a reason for any team, including Vanderbilt in the SEC, that they should be feared like they usually are, right? So it's just a different season. It could change. We could see a completely different LSU team, but I think after 8 weeks of play, 7 weeks of play, or 8 weeks of play, not counted bye weeks, they've shown their colors, right? I mean, unless they're chameleons and they're just going to completely alter and turn into this like prolific offensive juggernaut, I just don't see it happening. And I think that's why we feel very comfortable, even compared to Arkansas, because I think we both knew, being that we're football junkies, we watch all these teams. We knew how good Taylor Green was. We knew how good his receiving core was. We knew how good his running back room was. And we knew how good Bobby Petrino is as a play caller. So you feel more hesitant, right? You feel like he could easily tear up A&M's defense because it just doesn't matter. Throw the rankings out the window. But because of the O-line play, because of the fact that Nussmeier has just been under pressure for most of the season, advantage A&M in almost every aspect of the game.
Yeah, I think you and I are kind of on the same page with this. It's been a little bit weird because I think some of these games, for A&M specifically, we've been able to see how these games might be going closer rather than, farther apart. But across the nation, it's really been just kind of who would have thought that this game would have ended this way. And that's the love of college football that we have. We love being able to see all this late night craziness. Who would have thought that back in week 1 we would have seen, Cal versus Duke in a game where a true freshman comes in and just goes off for 350 yards in that game.
Yeah.
Or who would have thought that Vandy at this point would just be a perennial playoff contender at this point. These are the storylines that we love, Cameron.
And no, I know. And my favorite storyline that I just hold tight at night when I go to sleep is that Texas is probably the most below average offense I've seen all season. And Arch Manning is still throwing dirt balls, and people are going, no, it's not his fault. It's not his fault he threw a dirt ball. It's pretty funny. But and I did like the narrative of, which they have a point of saying that nobody comes out alive at Kroger Field, which
they do have a point.
I know, but nobody gets out alive at grocery store name fields, which I think is funny. They like great defense. Kentucky always has great defenses, but I watched the end of that game, and Texas had some problems, and they just lost Michael Taft. Sad enough. I like that kid for a while with a hand injury. So there's some issues with Longhorns, but again, very intriguing team. We'll continue to watch them and see if the season finale has really any meaning for them. Because it could be weird if that is a narrative I don't think we've talked about, and I thought about the other day. If A&M is, let's say a 10-1 team going into that game, and Texas is,
8-2,
maybe 3 losses. It's going to be a very different atmosphere. It's going to be very interesting. And we just don't think that.
I think they're going to be 8-2 is because the same narrative would have been the exact same last year.
They still have to play Arkansas, though.
Hey.
And Vanderbilt.
Hey, just saying. I think they can
going to take some good games from Arch. Well, I'm saying if they're going to get that done, Arch Manning is going to have to turn into the Arch Manning we all thought he'd be. So
before we end the show tonight, is there any other game this weekend that kind of catches your eye, no matter who the game is?
I'm going to be honest. I've been kind of – you got to help me out here because I've been kind of tied up this week. But – in the SEC. I mean, what you go first because I've got to kind of look over the slate again because I've been tied up with obviously.
I mean, a lot of people are going to immediately look at the SEC and say, "Oh, this Missouri Vanderbilt College game day game is going to be pretty big." But
so sorry, refresh. I would say Ole Miss, Oklahoma is probably the biggest game in the SEC, really. I think it's a measuring stick for both teams of where they're at. Obviously, Ole Miss coming off a big loss. They really can't sustain anymore. I do think, obviously, keeping with Texas, they're playing Mississippi State on the road. That's going to be very interesting. I think Texas is probably going to win that game, but at the same time, they're in desperate times right now. And Mississippi State also is looking for a signature win, and that team really needs one, right? They're going through a lot. They have that hot start. They really want to beat Texas or somebody else at home. And really and then, Alabama plays South Carolina. I mean, in South Carolina where they are extremely desperate to get a meaningful win in a season that nobody thought was coming. I mean, Shane Beamer was the darling of the offseason. I remember they beat a bad Virginia Tech team at the start of the year, and everyone went, oh, my God, a Heisman Trophy, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but we just don't know what we don't know. And now we kind of know South Carolina is a very below-average team in the SEC. But Alabama is the darling right now, getting even more love than A&M. And I would say, look, some of it's justified. They've been a little more consistent on both sides of the ball. I think A&M and Alabama are kind of tied with how well they played. And also, Alabama has now an ugly loss on their resume with Florida State, which could haunt them a little bit in seeding if they end up. A&M does not have any bad losses. They don't have any losses, but there's a lot of movement here, right? And then, obviously, Missouri Vanderbilt, that's one that probably is going to get the most attention outside of A&M LSU because how real is Vanderbilt, right? How real are they? Because they're facing another mobile quarterback in Bo Pavilla. Got a pretty good receiving core, has one of the best X receivers, I would say, in Coleman in the conference right now. They've got a very good running game with Ahmad Hardy, pretty decent defense. They're a team that, again, though, we really don't know yet because they haven't played a ton of tough games. And, losing to Alabama in a close game, would have meant a lot for them moving forward. Plus, their head coach is getting a lot of buzz for,
that is
openings.
True.
There's a lot of heat around there. He hasn't really said much. And, I think when Elko comes out and basically says, stop thinking about it, and hear a lot of other names not even really discussing it, it is something that could worry the fan bases going forward and supply a distraction. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff happening beforehand, a lot of movement, right? Because if A&M wins this game, they're 8-0, they're 5-0 in the SEC, and they're going to stay atop the SEC standings and pretty much have everything in front of them because you got to think of the schedule ahead. You get Missouri, you get the bye week next week, you get Missouri after. You're back at home against South Carolina and Sanford, and then you finish the season in Austin against Texas. So you get to 8 wins this weekend. You beat South Carolina and Sanford. You are a playoff lock. Missouri, your playoff lock.
Can I interest you in what's quietly a kind of insanely big game for one team?
Yeah.
And not in the SEC, but Northwestern goes to play Nebraska. And this
it's going to be interesting.
They're both 5-2 in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Nebraska's 2-2 in the Big Ten. This is a game where we've seen Northwestern pull off some games already.
Yeah.
And the spread's only Nebraska -7.5. I think this is this could be a make or break it game for Matt Rule over at Nebraska. I know he's been getting a lot more buzz around that Penn State job, but I think this is quietly one of the bigger games of the week. I think being the football junkie that I am, I'm probably going to be watching that game intently.
Yeah, that's an interesting matchup too, because I think Northwestern, it's kind of funny when Penn State lost to Northwestern. Like, you lost to Northwestern. I'm like, they're not that bad. I mean, they're actually pretty
terrible.
They're like a middle of the pack, Big Ten team. I mean, they're really not bad. But either way, I mean, you can't lose. It's just a brand thing, right? You can't lose to the smart kid school, or the academic school, right? But yeah, I mean, the Matt Rule thing, though, I don't know. I just love how I remember I was watching Pat McAfee and he's like wearing his Nebraska t-shirt, and he's like, I love it here. I'm never leaving, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, if I'm a Nebraska fan, yeah, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to be honest, because yeah, man, it's all good. All right. See you later. Oh, I'm glad that's over. All right. So all I'm saying is you don't want Nebraska to lose this game, because I think then it's really going to heat up. Because
agreed.
I do think, look, there's some names in my head, not Mike Elko, not Nick Saban, not, whoever you want to think of. But there are some legitimate names that they're thinking of. He's still atop the list. So, again, Penn State grad, BFFs with their AD. Can't get any closer than that. So, if I'm a Nebraska fan right now, which I know a lot of them, it's a little bit,
it's a tricky situation.
It's tricky, right? You just want to keep winning. Keep winning, maybe you'll have a chance, but it's a weird situation right now. But again, we've said at the beginning of the show, being an A&M fan, you don't have to worry about that. Mike Elko's not taking that job. And if he did, you can both color me and Cannon completely shocked to every fiber of our being if that happens. So anyways, yeah, we are going to probably do a post-game recap on Sunday afternoon. If we don't, we will be back next Tuesday, and that will be a bye week. So we'll have a lot to discuss, obviously reviewing this game, looking ahead, looking at, how this season has gone so far, what they've achieved. Obviously, if they beat LSU on Saturday, again, checking another box, as I've said, winning for the first time since 1994. So it's just an exciting season, man. I'm tired. I'm worn out, but it's been busy. But, man, I mean, best season I've covered so far. A lot of excitement ahead. I'm excited to watch every game now. There's not even one on schedule. I'm like, well, Sanford, I mean, that's just kind of a run-of-the-mill game. But still.
The Bucky Bowl. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah, underrated storyline there.
We'll see how that goes. But
you will be covering it's a scrimmage tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a scrimmage tomorrow for A&M to kind of get their feet wet into what A&M basketball all is. Not much to say there other than a lot of people getting to see what's going on. So we'll talk more about it later.
Yeah, which is good. And we'll get more into basketball, obviously, going into next month. I think we'll actually have time during the bye week to talk about that stuff more. So, all right. But either way, we will be back next Tuesday night as usual. Like I said, we might do a Sunday recap, but we will see. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a crazy game, I think. And it's going to be a very rowdy environment. But I'm going to be honest, I love these games. You always get kind of, a little bit on your toes about, man, I just hope they show up. I hope it's competitive. And when it is, like we saw with Notre Dame, like we saw last Saturday, it's good football. It's good football. It's good entertainment. And this team has not disappointed me once this entire season, which is just kind of crazy to say, right? It really is crazy to say. It really is. 8 weeks. So, all right, guys, as always, you can follow me at Cameron Honesty on X. You can follow him at Torres Cannon. You can always follow my work at Aggies Wire. We're putting out pretty much focused on football this week, but obviously a lot of recruiting news coming out. So a lot of guys, setting their announcement dates. There's a lot of stuff coming out there. And we will do some Bucky McMillan stuff. He's always fun to cover. But obviously, Cameron, where can everybody find you Patreon-wise?
Yeah, everyone can find me also doing a lot of the recruiting coverage for football and basketball over on Patreon at patreon.com/belltowerintel. So that's the site I run. There could be some good news coming towards A&M fans on one of those recruiting sites this week. A little sneak peek for y'all.
They're making a lot of progress there, and like we said, I think Elko could vie for the number one class in 2027 at this point. He's just making a lot of headway, a lot of very elite guys, especially in the secondary. A lot of intriguing prospects there. As always, all right, guys, see you next Tuesday game as usual, and we will see you then.